what's going on? I'm Joe Coffey for PremierGuitar.com. We're at the LA Amp Show 2009, and you just heard a Red Jones amp, and this is Mr. Billy Yates, formerly of the Outlaws.
Pleased to meet you.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine.
Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Hey, tell us about these amps, dude.
You know, they're kind of our own little spin on some classic circuits, and they're all faithfully handmade. I would say pretty much a replication, but with our own little enhancements here and there. And I won't, of course, divulge all that, but they have their own particular tonal signature. But they certainly harken back to what what their originals were all about.
It's a mean and gritty, man. I mean, this whole room was just lit up when you were playing just now. These suckers really put out.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, the thing that I try to do on these amps, other than pick really good components, is that I use nothing but vintage tubes. These are all Mullered or Amperex tubes in here, and I don't use any current production tubes in these amps. And they're under-capped as well, so the power supply sags a lot. And well, you heard it.
Why don't you take us through some more tones?
Okay, so well, basically, my whole methodology, or I should say my approach to guitar amplification, is something that I have learned on stage, is that you do not let the amplifier control you. It's your job to control your tone. You do that with your hands. So without using a bunch of foot switches and all that stuff, you basically just set the amp up to the decent volume for the environment that you're playing in, and then let your guitar control the amp. For example, I got a nice clean rhythm tone right here. And if I lean into it just a little bit more pressure on the strings, it breaks up a little bit. If I want to lay back, it cleans up. If I want to turn it up a little bit, I got some. And then you turn it down, you clean up, you can go back into your rhythm part. So, no foot switches, no stuff. I mean, it's a player's amp is what we try to do.
A lot of nice touches in the cabinetry here, the dovetail joints and everything. Let's get a close-up on some of these joints. That's amazing.
That's the artistry of Mr. Todd Flug, our partner, who is here in the room with us right now. And he does some mighty fine work. And actually, he comes from a family with a background in cabinetry.
Very cool. Yeah, I got to ask you, how about a little green grass?
Oh, boy. Well, Huey died a couple of years ago, so out of reverence to him, I won't play all of his licks. Okay.
Thanks for indulging me, man. I don't know. Yeah.
My pleasure.
I don't know how well our mic. We're trying our best here to capture the sound. These are hotel rooms,
right.
But I can tell you, just here in person, that amp sounds amazing, man. I mean, who is gravitating toward these amps? What kinds of players or studio people are buying this?
People who have figured out that survived the 80s with all the rack gear and all of the heavily modified Marshalls, that it just sounded so overly processed and just, I don't know, kind of unreal. And I think it's kind of like not a grassroots, no pun intended, green grassroots, a grassroots movement towards getting back to an organic sound. Just a guitar, a chord, and an amplifier. It's just real simple. And I don't believe in effects loops and all this, you know, pull this and push that. It's just plug it in, turn it up, get your sound, and start playing. And at that point, it puts the player under the magnifying glass, because for the first time, they may be hearing what they truly sound like and say, I need to take some lessons, or inspire them to play better. You know, and that's a good reason why a lot of people gravitate towards the boutique amps. Plus, the extra added benefit is that people who build amps like this have a very parental type of attachment towards what they do. They build something, they stand behind it, they're really proud of it, and they support their customer base. So if you were to come, say, to me and bought one of my amps I made just for you, if you ever had a problem with it, we would have a relationship based on that amp, and it would be taken care of. It's like a handshake, and you look at each other, have a cup of coffee, and that kind of thing, as opposed to the large corporation type thing where you lose that human interface, you know.
That's cool that you guys are out there doing that.
Yeah.
And you do offer a couple of different flavors.
Right. We offer a 30 watt and an 18 watt, and, well, a 36 watt. And these are basically, these are based on designs by Ken Fisher, who passed away a couple of years ago. These are based on the train wreck style amplifiers, and these two right here are based on the Rocket, which is probably not the most well-known of his amplifiers, but I took that design philosophy and embellished on it and kind of put my own little spin on it. But the main thing is this, the homage to the cabinetry. That's the one thing about the train wreck amplifiers that he did that very few, if anybody, did back in the day, was feature woodworking. Instead of covering up a pretty piece of wood with Tolex, you know, nice piece of cherry or mahogany is just such a nice thing to look at. So where you're sitting there sounding like God, you might as well look like God, you know. Just to coin a phrase, you know. Circuit-wise, they're very similar to what he did, but I put my own little stamp on it, because just try to voice them a little bit differently, just make them more interesting.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for playing for us and letting us know about the amps. If people want to find out more, where can they go online?
Well, we have a website, redjones.net. It just went up. It's just a page, and you put in your email information, and we got a phone number and pictures of the amps and stuff. But this is going to be built over time, and we invite people, if they're just got questions, want to chit chat or whatever, give us a call, write us an email. We'll have fun with it. We'll see where it goes from there.
Before I let you go, tell me about this guitar, man.
Well, this is the first time that I have had the pleasure of playing one of Lance's instruments. This is made by LSL, for Lance Lehrman, and it's a local company here in Los Angeles, and he builds what is arguably one of the best Telecaster style guitars ever made. These really harken back to the early 50s design and feel of the original Broadcaster / Telecaster Esquire guitars. And it's got that sound, it's got that spank to it, and they just respond so well to my hand. I feel like I'm playing, you know, Vince Gill's 54. You know, it's just, I want to go home with it. In fact, if I take this one home, I'm not going to speak to my wife for a week, because I know she's not going to speak to me for a week either. You got another guitar? But no, he builds a very, very fine instrument, and they're competitively priced. They're, I mean, extremely well made. He builds one a day, and his team of specialist, I mean, look at this. Attention to detail. You know, a little bit of wear and tear on here. And a little bottle cap mark right here. You know, it's got a little bit of belt buckle rash, but not too overly done with it. The back of the neck, you know, it's very comfortable. Some of us really like to feel wood instead of finish. And in the business part of the neck where you do most of your recording and stuff, it's nice and woody feeling. And it only weighs in at about maybe 5-6 pounds, if that. So from a player standpoint and a guy who's pushing 50, oh, you ain't doing this.
Cool. Well, Billy, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for playing for us. I'm Joe Coffey. You're watching PremierGuitar.com.
That's what I wanted to do.